Kiwis love a thirst. Like Finn, we're making waves. Generate. Switch online today.
Dylan Boucher, welcome to my podcast.
Great to be here.
Mate, this is the first time we've met in real life, but I'm so excited. I feel like I know you.
I said the same to you. I feel like I know you too. Yeah, it's crazy. But great to meet you in person. And excited to be on the show.
Yeah, and your hair is still, you're 49 now, you turn 50 later this year, your hair's still fabulous.
Oh, trying to keep it, while I've still got it. It feels like it's going a little bit backwards here, but while I've got it, let's enjoy it, yeah.
Because the hair was always part of your thing. You were sort of like New Zealand's David Beckham, I guess.
I had it was a funny story. I had a friend that was a hairdresser, and, she always used to cut my hair and always used to be like, oh, do you want to try this? And I go, yeah, why not? Yeah. So I was always open to experimenting in hairstyles and colours and all sorts, yeah.
The hairband, the very feminine hairband, that was controversial, right?
Oh, it was very controversial when you went to places like Perth and Townsville and played. They used to enjoy saying what they thought of you up in those places. But it was very controversial. Very practical though for keeping hair out of your eyes. I can tell you that.
God, why didn't you, basketball was your thing? Why didn't you just get a sensible haircut?
Well, it's funny because it's my game didn't stand out enough on its own, so you needed something else to stand out for selectors. So when you're going to be on a court, you want to be able to be noticed, and my game wasn't good enough to be noticed, so you needed something else. So why not have a hairstyle that no one else has got? Yeah.
Hey, so quick bio. Dillon Boucher holds the record for the most New Zealand NBL titles, won at 9. Foundation member of the Breakers. 3 NBL titles in a row between 2011 and 2013. That's a dynasty, right? That's what you call a dynasty. Over 100 tests for the Tall Blacks. Mm-hmm. In that unforgettable 2002 World Champs where New Zealand finished 4th. You reflect on your career. It's crazy, right, the achievements?
Yeah, I mean, when you read them all out at once, there's a lot of achievements there. I did play for a long time, so it was easy to get those achievements, but it wasn't easy to get those achievements, but I was really fortunate enough to play for some really good teams, had some amazing teammates, amazing coaches, administrators that helped us, have success, but certainly was an enjoyable part of my life for sure, having those successes, and a lot of hard work went in behind it, but nevertheless it was when you're cutting down those nets, there's nothing better.
Yeah, it feels like like a golden era of New Zealand basketball that you were involved with. Would that be fair to say, or is that just a couple of old men sitting back reflecting?
Well, of course, I'm going to say it was a golden era, but no, in all seriousness, I think it was a golden era. We had a group of guys that stayed together for a long time, and I think a lot of the young guys coming through now saw that group playing, and they wanted to be like them, and they wanted to play basketball at the highest level, and I think that group was, again, special group, and you look at most of them that have been involved in those teams going forward, they're either in coaching roles now, high-level coaching roles or administration roles, or doing things at a high level. So it was a pretty special group.
And you've made a transition really successfully into the admin side of basketball. You've been the CEO of Basketball New Zealand, and at the time we're recording this, you've just landed a new job, which you haven't started yet, as president of the Breakers?
Yeah.
Damn. That's a hell of a title. What does it mean exactly?
So it's president of basketball operations. So for me, it's basically taking care of everything on the basketball side of the BNZ Breakers. And for me, that's like recruiting the team with the coaches, recruiting the coaches, making sure that your high performance side of the business is functioning, and then making sure that your development is leading into your performance side of things. So it's exciting. That's the area I love the most. When I think about when I finish playing, what are the areas I love? Those are the areas I love, is being able to be involved with the high performance team, but maybe not so much in a capacity of like coaching or training or anything like that, but in the recruiting and those sorts of things, and working with the coaches to figure out who you're going to put on the roster to be successful at the end of the day.
So does it scratch a niche for you? Is there still a niche there? Like in terms of it puts you close enough to the court and close enough to the players?
Yeah, so there's 100% still a niche there. And it's funny, when I finished playing, there was a couple of routes you can usually go down. One is coaching and one is the administration side of things. And To be honest, to be bluntly honest, my heart is in coaching. I really wanted to be a coach. And
Because you dabbled, eh? You
I
were
dabbled a little
assistant coach with the Tall Blacks for a bit.
correct. Yeah, as assistant coach for 3 years with the Tall Blacks, and kind of thought, is that my avenue? But the reality, as we kind of spoke off air, there's one job as the head coach of the Breakers that pays enough to be a full-time coach in this country. And it's so if you want to get coaching jobs, you have to go outside of New Zealand. I had 4 children at the time, and I still have 4 children, but I had 4 young children at the time, and I was like, I'm not about to chase jobs around the world coaching. And quite a few of my teammates did and have had success doing it. So I went down the administration route. But to your point, I think I still scratch that itch that I have in this role of president of basketball operations. I still get to scratch that itch on a daily basis, which is far more enjoyable for me. Would I like to be coaching one day? Absolutely. Am I going to be coaching one day? Don't know, probably not. But I still get to scratch that itch every day.
Yeah, when was the last time you got amongst it? Like when do you handle a ball?
So socially, last night.
Okay.
You probably saw me walking a bit gingerly today, but socially not very well these days. But I still enjoy the competitiveness of basketball, and I still enjoy the camaraderie of being with your mates and competing out there on the floor. So that stuff still is enjoyable to me. And then since I've started this role at the BNZ Breakers, we are fully immersed in recruiting players and so forth now. So right now I'm getting that itch scratched fully. And we've just completed our New Zealand players or our local players on our roster, and now we'll be trying to recruit 3 imports to be able to complement those players.
Hey, by the way, something I've noticed, you're going to be great at this president role. I've noticed every time you say the Breakers, you do say BNZ first.
Absolutely. Well trained, huh?
Yeah. Fantastic. Have you got like a pool room at home or a shrine or anything?
I don't. I've got a couple of boxes of all my singlets and memorabilia over the years, and I've always said one day when I have a pool room, I'll get them out and I'll frame them up and I'll do that. I've got a couple of framed jerseys at home, but they literally just sit in the corner of a garage. We've recently renovated, and a couple have gone up on the wall. A couple of the championship photos have gone up on the wall in the garage, but no, I don't. I actually don't like people. When people come over, I like them to come over because of me. I don't want them to have to look at a wall and see, photos of me holding a championship trophy or something up. I just want to be me. So they're in the garage. But one day I would like to have a pool room that has a few pictures and singlets like that are from Olympics or World Cups and things like that.
Unreal. Yeah, that'd be a hell of a man cave. Because what else I see? So do you get rings, like actual rings, when you win a championship?
So we have got rings. There has been rings in the past. They're generally not as glamorous as the NBA ones, because those are amazing. But I've got a few rings. The main piece of memorabilia that you keep is a piece of the net. So you cut down the net, and you generally cut a bit off for yourself and put it in your pocket or whatever, and that's your memory of that championship, knowing that you cut that piece of net down. Yeah, so sounds very probably pathetic to the average punter, but everyone wants to cut a net down when you play basketball. That's the ultimate. When you finish the season, you get to cut the net down at the end of the season.
Where do you get the implement from?
So they're always ready. When you're ready, they've got a ladder and they've got a pair of scissors. So when you win, and there's key things. Usually it's a ladder, a pair of scissors, champagne. These days it's goggles, so you don't get the champagne in your eyes. We learnt the hard way in the old days, but those are kind of the key things when you're and cigars is probably the other one. And again, you have one puff of a cigar and you just want to throw it out anyway, because I don't know where that tradition came from. I actually think it was Michael Jordan who was the first one to smoke a cigar in the changing room. So that seemed to be a tradition, which is not one I'm a big fan of, to be honest.
I feel like Jordan could have potentially been smoking cigars pre-game as well.
Oh, he probably was, 100%.
Yeah. Are you like a Jordan fanatic?
I'm a Jordan fan. I grew up on Jordan, and the debate's always Jordan or LeBron James. For me, LeBron James is the single greatest, most talented basketball player. He's 40-something years old and he's still performing at an NBA level, which is phenomenal. Michael Jordan for me will always be the GOAT, just purely because that's what I grew up on. That's the reason I picked up a basketball, because I watched his Come Fly With Me VHS videos, and that was what made me want to pick up a basketball and start playing.
Did you when you were playing, there's so much knowledge and info about Jordan now, like the Last Dance documentary on Netflix was phenomenal. When you were playing, and when or before you were playing and you were a fan of Jordan, did you know what an arsehole he was? Or
No, it's funny because you never saw that till later.
Yeah.
It's probably not till he retired you found that stuff out. And again, things weren't as accessible back then as what they are now, right? You can't get away with being an arsehole now, like because you'll get found out because there's cameras everywhere. Whereas in those days, it was like the cameras would be on the games, but they wouldn't capture anything off court. And so I think that's the uniqueness about Jordan is he still has the stigma about him because of people. All they want to remember is the good stuff about him.
Yeah, 'cause how would teammates describe you? Like, what were you like? Because I mean, yeah, like giving Jordan a bit of a pass. He was just super competitive, and it must have been frustrating for him having teammates that couldn't necessarily rise to his level. But yeah, it did sound like it was very difficult to be a teammate with.
Absolutely. What would my teammates say about me? I think they think I'm a good teammate. I think, for me, I needed my teammates to be successful. I wasn't like Jordan. I couldn't just do things on my own. I didn't have that skill and I didn't have that ability. So my whole MO on a basketball court was to get the right people the ball at the right times and be able to make the right reads. And so for me, I made a living of trying to make everyone around me better players. And and some of the success that we had, you might not see my name up in lights or in the paper the next day, but I know that the role I played was crucial in us being able to be successful. So I think my teammates, especially those ones that I passed the ball a lot, would probably say I'm a good teammate. But I'm a competitor too. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I back myself to be able to guard anybody on the court and shut them down. That was again what part of my MO was. I wanted to be known as the guy who could put me on the best player on the court and I'll shut him down. I might not shut him down every time, but I'm going to make his life pretty difficult, and he's going to be more worried about me than he is about worrying about the game. So for me, that was kind of how I wanted to, and then that would take the pressure off my teammates. They would have to just worry about their person they were marking, wouldn't have to be helping me and things like that. So I would hope they say I was a good teammate. I have really strong relationships still with guys that I've played with over the years. So I think that's probably a testament to how, what they thought of you on the court.
100%. Yeah. You in like a WhatsApp group or a Facebook group?
Yeah, we've got a few of them. Yeah, a few
you?
little groups. Yeah, absolutely. If you asked about players that I never played with, they probably think I was an asshole. But
that's the highest honour, right?
Yeah, it is 100%. Like I always used to say to players, if you're being booed in an opposition's gym, you've done something to annoy them, which probably means you've done something well that stopped their team being successful. So don't be afraid of the boos. Encourage them. Actually embrace them. So yeah, it's almost the ultimate compliment as a player.
Yeah. Well, there's this photo here, which is iconic. What's the story behind that photo?
Funnily enough, so that's Mark Worthington. There was a test match against Australia. Funnily enough, it was actually a bit premeditated, that one, to be honest. So we actually went to a Bledisloe Cup match before this game, and first time I met Mark, it was first time playing for the Boomers, and he said, "Oh, I'm really excited to face the haka." And I said, "Oh, okay." Then I said, "All right, well, tomorrow, I think we were playing the next day," and I was like, "Tomorrow I got something special for you in the haka." So that was a photo taken at the end of the haka where we were face to face. So back in those days, we used to advance doing the haka, and we would often be, especially Australia, they'd line up on the halfway line. And the rule was with FIBA is you can't cross the halfway line. So Australia would line up right on the halfway line, whereas most teams line up on their own free throw line, so a long way away. They line up on the halfway line, so we would start on our free throw line and advance to the halfway line. And I happened to line up perfectly in front of Mark Worthington, and I knew that he was excited to see the haka for the first time. And so that was the photo captured right at the end of the haka. But again, we became good friends after that. We competed. Don't get me wrong, we competed hard against each other on the court. We went at it, and those matches against Australia were brutal. But we could have a beer after the game and have a laugh about what went on in the game. And there was no ill intent in any of the behaviour. It was just good, hard, aggressive basketball being played.
That's such a cool backstory. So there's no bad blood there?
No bad blood at all, no.
Yeah, but you're just giving him an experience.
Absolutely. And to an average fan, they probably thought there was massive bad blood. And when you'd watch us play, you'd probably think we didn't like each other. But then they didn't know behind closed doors we're having a beer after the game, laughing about it. And, now we still, if we see each other, we'd cross the street to say good day to each other.
Were you surprised or chuffed at the time with how that photo sort of blew up and how it sort of developed a legend all on its own?
Well, again, like I said to you before, my game never really put me in the headlines. It's normally the other things that put me in the headlines. That was another classic example where I think people just saw a picture and read more into it than what there was. So again, I never used to correct anyone on it. I'd just run with it because for me, it's like if people are, again, engaged in basketball, that's a good thing. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we'll get into that. I'm keen to drill into the break overseas, which must have been really tough. So you had a year in Perth and then a year in Brisbane.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you mentioned, you're a family man, so you went over there and did that without your family. So you're playing for a team that you don't love as much as the team you really want to be in, and you're away from your family, and there's a whole dynamic. We'll get into that. But first of all, I want to go all the way back.
Yeah.
So, Bell Block, Taranaki.
Yep.
Which is a place that nobody knows.
No, yeah.
But what are your earliest memories of basketball?
So for me, I was at Bell Block Primary School. Must have been because I went to Form 2 or Year 8 in those days. I think I must have been younger. It must have been like Standard 4, which is, what's that, Year 4, Year 4, Year 6, sorry, Year 6, sorry. And my older brothers were playing for the school intermediate team, and they were shorter players one day, so I jumped on the court and played. We had a hoop at home, so I was used to shooting hoops with my brothers. Got 2 older brothers. And the backyard battles were brutal. We played on gravel, and you'd often go inside crying because your brother had knocked you over and you'd grazed your knee on the gravel, and the hoop was on a garage, hard on a garage. So when you did a layup, you hit the garage, and it wasn't these days like a nice versatile garage door. It was like a brick, like it wasn't the garage door. It was the side of the garage, which was made out of block bricks with a ledge sticking out with a window, and it was brutal. So if you went in and your brother was chasing you and bumped you into the wall, you got nailed, but you might have made the shot. And I truly believe that's the aggressive style we used to play in the backyard is why I played the way I played, because I wasn't afraid of being physical. Again, most New Zealand kids grow up playing rugby and so forth, and, so tackling and stuff is just part of what we do. It's part of our DNA. So being physical on the basketball court, that's been happening since I was like 5 years old. But yeah, I got to step on the court with my older brother's team and got to play a little bit and fell in love with it. And again, just started playing for the school team, and there just fell in love slowly over. And the other sports slowly died away. I played every sport growing up. Was right into BMX racing when I was growing up, and basketball was just a sport that slowly took over, and I really wanted to do it and play it well.
Yeah, so your older brothers, one was 2 years older than you, and one's 4 years older than you. I don't have any actual feedback on this, but I've done over like 200 of these podcasts, and a lot of them with like real successful New Zealanders. And I reckon like having older siblings, brothers in particular, is a great predictor of success. Like it toughens you up, right?
Oh man,
toughest opponents you'll ever have, and they show no mercy.
No mercy, and still don't. If you still speak to my older brother, he'll probably tell you he can beat me in basketball. That's that. When you're the youngest, you're going to take your beatdowns, and you've got a choice. You can either run inside to mum and tell on them, or you can stand up for yourself. And most times than not, I'd run inside and tell on them with mum. But then over time, I slowly was like, because mum would just go, oh, let's just stay inside then. And I didn't want to stay inside. So I'd go back out into the cauldron again, and I'd go back out there knowing I was going to get beat down. But that, again, toughens you up, and it just makes you be able to be strong as a person and as a player.
Well, there's that 10,000 hour theory. Are you familiar with that from Malcolm Gladwell? Yeah, like you were cutting your teeth with some very, very, intimidating opponents.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, there's not many games I've gone on the court fearing my opponents in a physical fearing. There's some big dudes we've played against too that you're kind of like, you're a little bit like, damn, you're huge. But I've never feared anyone, and I've never, again, been scared of physicality on a court, and I think that truly is the upbringing.
Did you? Side note, did your house have broken windows all the time?
We had broken everything. Everything got broken again because we played everything, and we were racing motorbikes and BMX bikes around the house, and it was crazy.
Yeah, so I've got a younger brother, and we were playing cricket on the driveway all the time. And windows were different back then. They were like really, really thin.
Really thin, yeah. If you hit it with a tennis ball, it was going to break, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, the BMX thing, you mentioned that a couple of times. This is a fun fact that I discovered. So you bet Carlos Spencer in a BMX race.
Oh, we raced against each other. I don't even know who won, to be honest. But, and again, I didn't know. I only remember the name, and he had an older brother as well that raced against my brother, and so the
Fabian.
Fabian, yeah. So we knew the name, and so when he became a rugby player, I was like, oh, I'm pretty sure I used to race BMX against that guy, and I remember him because he was a huge kid. Like, he was way bigger than me as a kid, and if we stood next to each other now, I'm sure I'm way bigger than him, but yeah, when he was a kid, he was a big, strong rider, and I was like a little skinny, like scrawny rider that was pretty good at tactics and stuff, whereas he was a power rider. So if you got caught on a straight with him, you were never going to win. He was going to be too powerful for you. So yeah, I remember. I don't remember exactly racing against him, but I remember the name and having races against him. And he was a good rider too.
Since it was unlikely that anyone was there with a handicap, we're gonna say it now. You won.
Yeah, let's just say that then.
You
yeah,
beat him,
absolutely.
and that's when his BMX dream was crushed.
Absolutely.
And he turned to rugby.
So the All Black fans can thank me for that.
So back then in the Bell Block days, and what was your awareness or relationship with the NBA? Like, did you get the occasional VHS tape from a friend in the States, or did you have any access to American sport?
Not much. Dad somehow would always he'd have connections all over the place, and we'd get sent VHS tapes. But they were always they were NTSC. I don't know if you remember back in the day. So there was Power, which was New Zealand, and NTSC, which was American. So your average VHS player in New Zealand couldn't play these tapes. So we had to buy a dual player to be able to actually play these tapes that we'd get from the US. And so Dad's friends would send him these VHS tapes and Sports Illustrated magazines over. And so that's where we started watching these games and started watching. There was no internet back in those days, so we were fortunate enough to be able to get these videotapes and watch them. And we'd watch it, and I can remember clearly going outside with my brothers, and we'd try and practice the moves that Michael Jordan was doing, and we'd spend hours out there, and who can do it better, and it would go on like that for hours and hours. So that's kind of how we started falling in love with the game, because again, if you practice the 10,000 hours that you're talking about, you practice enough, you start being able to actually emulate these moves, and you're going, I can actually do it now. And then the more you do it, the better you get at it, and then you can make it on a consistent basis, and then you add it to the rest of your game, and so that's kind of what we used to do. Yeah.
God, we were raised on a diet of delayed gratification, eh?
We used to have to go to the encyclopedias if we wanted to know anything.
Yeah,
brutal.
Yeah, we had Funk and Wagner ones, which Mum used to buy like one each week at the supermarket until we had the whole set.
That's it.
Yeah, that was the access to all the information you had.
Absolutely.
Whatever was in those books. And you were a four-square kid, so your parents had like a superette.
Man, you have done your homework. Yeah.
Yeah, what was that? I would have thought that would have been my dream as a kid, to have parents that had a dairy.
Absolutely. So we had the local Foursquare. It was kind of like a superette, I guess you'd call it these days, on the main strip. And then eventually they bought a bigger supermarket that was down the road a little bit. But I've got scars from opening a box with a Stanley knife when I was a kid. We used to have to work in the shop after school, so because Mum and Dad were both working in the shop, so it was down the road from the school. It was a 2-minute walk to the dairy or to the superette. So we would go in there and we'd work for pocket money after. My parents were both very big on you have to work, you have to be able to work to be able to earn money. And I think they've instilled in me and my brothers that we're all hard workers. We all don't mind working hours and putting those hours in. I truly believe that's because we've done it from a young age, and we don't think anything of working past 5 o'clock or anything. That was just normal. And so, again, we'd go and work in the supermarket, earn our pocket money, and then when Mum would take us home to cook dinner and have dinner, and Dad would stay till closing, and then Dad would come home when the shop closed. And like you say, the best time was actually this time of the year was Easter, because when Easter eggs got broken, they would get credited by the company that gave them to you, but leave the Easter egg there. So we would purposely break Easter eggs so they would get credited, knowing that we were going to be out the back eating these Easter eggs. And we were pretty mischievous back in the day, and our parents would let us. We were allowed whatever we wanted from the supermarket, but we had to write it in the credit book, because they had to know that that's gone off the shelf, so they could see what you'd had, right? So we would go and get whatever after school, and we'd write it in the book, and then we'd get home and Mum would grill us. You told you're not allowed that many lollies, or you're not allowed this, you're not allowed that. So we were very fortunate, again, to be able to have access to a supermarket as kids. But again, I think, the lessons you learnt were pretty important. You worked hard, you got pocket money, and then you were able to get stuff from the shop. So
yeah, it's foundational stuff.
Absolutely.
Eh? And did you have like a house on the back of it, or was your house?
No, originally they did, but we ended up we lived about a 7-minute ride up the road in a car, and we used to often bike to and from home. We kind of lived rurally, so we lived up kind of where people farm and stuff, in a nice big house there, and had a really good childhood because we had land and stuff, and a big area, and a big house as well. So yeah, it was kind of started with the house behind the shop and then moved to a bigger house after that.
Were you tall then? Were you good for stocking the top shelves?
No, so I wasn't. I was kind of always been tall-ish, but I kind of had probably my growth spurt in around that 16, 17 years old, kind of that 6th, 7th form time, or year 12, 13. So that was kind of where I grew over that sort of summer break, and I came back to school and everyone was like, "Wow, you've grown heaps taller." And my brothers are only 6 foot and 6'2", so, you know, my dad's about 6'3", 6'4". So my brothers are not short, but they're a lot shorter than what I am, and I'm 6'5", so I kind of got the height in the family, I think.
Yeah, and you guys moved to Auckland when you were 14.
Yeah, that's right.
Your parents had a motel business in South Auckland?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, that must have sucked balls. So you're 14, your brothers are 16 and 18.
Yep.
It's a time of your life where you've got your school connections and you've got your roots firmly planted. And
Absolutely.
no kid wants to go to a new school at that age.
Not to Auckland when you're from out of Auckland, right? Everyone looks at Auckland and goes, "Oh, who would want to live in Auckland?" And, you know, for us, you know, moved into Papatoetoe and massive culture shock, you know, coming from a small little, you know, country kind of town in New Plymouth, and you move into South Auckland and Papatoetoe. And, you know, like for me, it was, I always tell the story, me and my older brother, we had mullets, you know, it was back when it was cool to have a mullet. It was back cool again now, I guess, but no one in Auckland had mullets. They were already into the fades. So we got to school and there's these 2 country bumpkins walking into school with these mullets. And I can remember coming home my first day of school and I said to Mum, "Oh, can we just go to the hairdresser? I want to have a haircut," because I just didn't want to look different. It was bad enough, hard enough trying to fit in with new friends and things like that, but you didn't want to look different. So, yeah, we got haircuts and came back to school the next day. But the best thing about when you move into a new school, sport is the one thing that can build your friendships. And for us, we love sports, so we joined the sports teams and we'd play sport at lunchtime, and eventually you've got a group of friends because you're engaged in sport, and that was probably the best way to get friendships.
Yeah. What were you playing back then?
I was playing everything. Probably back then, I was playing rugby. I was playing basketball. I was still playing a bit of tennis back then. What else I played for the school? Maybe played touch for the school. But we'd play league every lunchtime at school, and, you know, I enjoyed, again, the physicality, so we'd go and play league, and I had made a few mates doing that, made a few enemies as well in those days. But we loved it, you know. We just loved just being kids and having some fun.
So when did you settle on basketball as your one sport?
To be honest, by the time I moved to Auckland, I was a decent rugby player in Taranaki and, you know, played for the province and stuff. But when I moved to Auckland, again, I was an aggressive rugby player. I was so skinny back then. When we were playing in Auckland, everyone was so much bigger. And I can remember flying into tackles and coming off second best a lot. And I was like, man, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. You know,
it's
like
not fun.
No, whereas, you know, I used to be able to tackle people and you know, get them down. Whereas now I was getting bumped off and, you know, it was like, I don't know if this is as fun as it used to be. So I think that combined with, you know, we had a hoop up at our motel and I would just spend hours out there practicing, and I was starting to get quite good at it. And I was kind of like loving the fact that I was putting hours into basketball and seeing improvement. And I think it's like anything. If you can see improvement in things, you eventually will go and really focus on that, because I really knew that if I was putting in hours, I was getting better and better. And then, you know, I'd go to school and practice the things I'd worked on, and I was, you know, becoming one of the better players at school. And I was like, oh, I actually quite enjoy this. And I just love basketball encompasses all of the skills, and that's probably what I end up falling in love with basketball for.
So I've just got a mental picture of me having a nice relaxing night at a motel in South Auckland. And there's some annoying kid outside.
Absolutely.
Just bounce.
I was that kid.
Oh,
100%. Like, you'd imagine just the dung on the backboard.
Just relentless for hours on end.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was me. Yeah.
Wow.
So poor people that stayed at that motel.
Did you guys work at the motels as well?
Yep. We had to work.
Cleaning units or?
Yeah, not so much cleaning. We had cleaners, but we would do odd jobs around the place. And when Mum and Dad would go out, we'd run the motel. So I can remember being, you know, school holidays and Mum and Dad went away somewhere and I was in year 13 and I ran the motel for a week on my own, you know, 17 years old. So, again, it was one of those old ones where as someone would open the front door, the doorbell would ring and our house was right next to the reception. So we'd hear the bell in the house and we'd come through and go, how can we help you? So you'd just be sitting in the house waiting as someone to arrive, and then as someone would walk in, the buzzer would go and you'd go out and serve them. And so you had to be there 24/7 basically, because although you would lock it up at night, people might come at 10 o'clock at night needing a room. And my dad was always, if someone needs a room, you sell them a room. You know, it wasn't like, oh, we're closed, sorry, because it's 10 o'clock. It's 10:01, you've missed the deadline. It's like, no, we've got a spare room. Put them in a room. Happy days. So, yeah, and we'd even have a shuttle that would go out and pick people up from the airport and stuff. So we used to drive the shuttle out to the airport and pick people up and bring them back and take them back out to their flights. So, yeah, we all myself and my two brothers all worked at the motel.
Oh, Geez, it sounds like your dad was like really good at running a small business, eh? Like that's how you do it.
100%. I mean, he that motel was, I think the occupancy was like 90-something% all time. So he was always, again, he got into sports groups, and sports groups would stay there, and he'd get into exchange groups, and they would stay there, and then you'd have your tourists, and then you'd have, so again, that shuttle service to the airport doesn't happen these days. But if you know you've stayed at a motel that will pick you up at the airport, which was 20 minutes away, and drop you back there, that's a pretty good deal, right? In nowadays terms. So, and again, that was just my dad's, he loves people and he loves being around people. So in that people service industry, he really thrived.
What are they doing now? They retired?
Fully retired now, yeah.
Oh, do they live on you? No, it's your in-laws that live with you.
Live with me, yeah.
Right. Wow. Yeah, where are your parents these days?
So they live out in Ramarama, so live in a 5-acre block out there. They've worked really hard their lives, so now they're just putting their feet up and relaxing.
So how much of your basketball was like natural talent versus hard work? Because you made like your first New Zealand age group team at 17, eh?
Yep. So straight out of school, I was selected in the New Zealand junior team, and Tab Baldwin, who was the coach, happened to be the Auckland coach as well. So when I trialled for the New Zealand team and was successful making that team, he also was like, oh, well, come along and play for Auckland as well. So I went straight out of school into that. Again, I didn't know. So my school team, we didn't play in the Premier comp that they have in Auckland. There's Premier comp, and then I think it's A grade, and then the grade underneath. We were the 3rd grade in Auckland, so I was pretty good in that group because it wasn't a super talented group. That we were a super talented competition that we played in. It was just a South Auckland competition. But again, I kind of cut my teeth at that level, and I was able to play multiple positions within my team, and so it really helped me develop different skill sets that I believe I've taken on future. But I didn't really know. I didn't know that I wasn't as talented as some of the people. Like because I played hard and I played aggressive and I was fit, I kind of made up for a lot of deficiencies at that lower level. But when I got to the high level, I realised that there were far more skilled and more talented people. Like I wasn't a super athlete. I couldn't shoot great. Like the really good players could shoot. But what I had was, I guess, a basketball IQ that I didn't even know was probably superior than a lot of people at the time. I just thought everyone thought the same, because you don't ever go, what is your brain telling you, but you can see if a guy can not jump high, and you can see if a guy can't shoot as good, but you can't see what's going on in the person's head. So I had a knack of being able to get steals in a game, and a lot of it wasn't because, I was fast or I was athletic. It was that I could read a play. So I knew when the guy was going to pass a pass across the court, I would anticipate it, get a steal, and go down and get a layup at the other end. And so I would get a lot of my points on just being serviced by someone else or by getting a steal and having no one in front of me. But I wasn't super good at beating my player to the hoop and scoring, where a lot of the guys are really talented in that area. So I probably back in the day, I probably honed in on the stuff I was really good at, and then I made myself irreplaceable because I could do things that others couldn't do, whereas everyone could do the other things. So I kind of focused on that probably too much when I didn't spend enough time over here, and my game probably wasn't as balanced as what, if I went back and was critical of myself, I could have worked harder on the things I wasn't good at and actually probably elevated my game to a higher level.
I don't know. It was a pretty successful and long career. Right.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, don't get me wrong. I had a great career, and I wouldn't change that. And like I say, I had some good success, but you often look back and you think, did I work as hard as what I possibly could? And to be honest, when we first started, we didn't know. Like what the kids know now and what they have to do, it's pretty much scripted. If you do X, Y, and Z, you got to put yourself in the best position to succeed. And if you've got some natural talent, you might even go further than the next person next to you. So we know that now, and kids know that now, but it's hard work. Like your average person cannot be a professional athlete. And every kid that's playing sport to this day that's 14, 15 goes, I'm going to be a professional athlete. Like some people are not cut out to be a professional athlete. And that's all right, because there's something for everyone. But if you want to get to the top of your game, it's going to be a lot of boring hours and you've got to put the hours in. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, that's another thing I've got from doing this podcast. You realise the only cheat code there is hard work.
That's it.
It's a really boring answer.
It is.
And it's not an answer that anyone wants to hear, but that's it.
That's it.
It's the cheat code.
Yep, and discipline. You know, like you got to have discipline. Like you got to be disciplined in what you eat. You got to be disciplined that you're going to miss, you know, personal events in your life because you're out training. You know, like I can remember, like when I was younger, I used to go to parties and stuff, and then I'd be like, I know in my mind, I know I got training in the morning at 8 o'clock in the morning. I can't stay out with you guys. I got to go home because I got training in the morning. And, you know, when you're 8 beers deep, none of your mates want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No one wants to hear that, right? So you've got to be disciplined to be able to walk away from your good mates because you know they're going to continue on having a good time, but you're going to go home early because make sure you get a decent sleep to get up so you can go to training the next day. And then what becomes happening is you end up going, I'm not going to even go out with them because I don't want to put myself in a position that I'm going to have to say no to my mates. So you just go, oh, no, I'm not coming out tonight. So you sacrifice a lot of your personal stuff early on to be able to get the gains, to be able to be successful. But I can tell you now, my mates that I grew up with and stuff, they were all probably really proud of where I've got to, and they know I made some sacrifices to get there, and that's a part of it.
Yeah, I suppose for anyone, regardless of whatever sport that they want to excel, and the question to ask yourself is how bad do you want it?
That's it.
And if you want it bad enough, then
that's what it comes down
you'll
to.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, the career stuff. We will go deep on that in a second. But first of all, it must have been around this time in your late teens when you're at the motel that you meet your wife.
Yeah.
Who you're still with today.
Yeah.
Nikki.
Yeah.
So I've heard two different stories. One, she worked at a service station and you sort of creeped on her as a customer. Another story I've heard is that you worked together at the servo.
Both right. Yeah, both very right. So the service station was directly across the road from the motel. And often we'd have to, that's where you went and got your bread and milk. And, you know, it was a BP service station, so you get your bread and milk and all the stuff. So Mum would go across and get a loaf of bread for breakfast or whatever, or milk or whatever it was. And Nikki's brother actually worked there, and I met him first, Jeremy. And then I first got a job there as part-time, you know, a couple afternoons after school, and became friends with Jeremy. And then one day I was working with Jeremy, and Nikki came in and saw him, and they were talking, and I was like, oh yeah. And then she left, and I said, man, who's that girl? And he goes, oh, that's my sister. And I was like, oh, okay. You know, it's kind of like, oh. And then she ended up working at the gas station as well. She picked up some part-time work, so we never worked together, or very rarely. I don't think we even worked together, but we kind of like just started becoming friends there, and we were friends for about a year before we officially started going out. I've been together ever since. So that was 30-something years ago. So
it's so cool. So you're like teenage sweethearts. What's her recollection of like first seeing you?
Oh, she was not at all interested in me when she first saw me. Not at all. Yeah, no. In all seriousness, we were purely platonic friends, you know. And I think I either wore her down or won her over, one of the two things. And I think, you know, one of the things we say to our kids is often give people a chance, get to know someone, because, you know, it's not always, you know, love at first sight or whatever. It was love at first sight for me. It probably wasn't for her, but you know, it's not always the fairy tale like that. Get to know someone, because the personality is generally the thing that's going to keep you together over a long period of time. So again, we had a good, strong friendship, and then we took it to the next level, and never looked back.
Because you got married quite young, eh?
I think we were 24 when we got married. Yeah.
So you'd been together like say 6-7 years.
About 8 years. 8 years. Yeah. Yep.
It's amazing from the perspective of where you're at now, like a middle-aged man. That's cool, right?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
It is. I mean, I'm very fortunate. Most people don't find that one person, not at a young age, but some people never find that one person.
How did you know she was the one?
It's funny. I told my mates when I first saw her, I was like, I'm going to marry this girl. And
as a teenage boy?
As a teenage boy, yeah. As a teenage boy, I was like, there was something about her that caught me. I liked how she looked, but also just she was cool, you know, and she understood me and got me and you know, and vice versa. And again, that friendship was really strong. She was almost my best friend within a year, you know, so it was pretty cool that you can find that person. And it's hard. Now we've got our own kids. Their expectation of finding that the one early is they just think they should have already found their person by now.
Because it's the blueprint.
Because it's the blueprint, right? And it worked for us, but it doesn't work for everyone.
Like, that's the sweetest story. Like, your kids may or may not listen to this one day, and like to know that, to hear the way that you're speaking about their mum.
Yeah.
That's really sweet.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, and she's I think back to my success in my career, she's a big reason for it, like obviously there's quite a few people that are important in my career journey, but she would be the most important. She's the one who humbles me, when I'd come home and be on a high on something, she would bring me back down to reality, and go, you're not that good. She wouldn't say those words, but, would always humble me. But also the one that would kick me out the door to go and train and tell me, you got to go work harder, and so very fortunate to have someone that understands how to get the best out of you. And she sacrificed a lot of her life for me to do what I do, with raising our kids when I've been up all around the world playing the sport that I love. I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't have a wife at home that was enabling me to go and do that and putting her own career on hold.
Yeah, if I was you, I think I would have fucked it up in my 20s. I would have, you're a good-looking guy, you're popular, you're a star in a successful basketball team. The temptation would have got to me, I think, as a character flaw on my part. Are you religious? Are you guys religious?
No, not religious.
Yeah, it's funny because it's just like religious energy and like meeting young, marrying young, and just having this rock solid relationship. It seems like there's some almost like religious like foundations there. Yeah, that's really sweet.
No, I mean, don't get me wrong. When we were kids, we went to Christian camp and things like that, but we certainly didn't grow up in the church or anything like that.
No, you just got a good North Star or a good moral compass.
Yeah.
And your kids, so you got 4 kids. The 2 older ones, both pretty handy basketballers.
Yep. So 4 kids, 23, 21, and twins that are 14. They actually all play basketball, and the older 2 took it really seriously. So Jaden, the oldest, is playing for the Phi in the Cells NBL and down in Tauranga there. And my daughter, Mackenzie, she was in college for a couple of years over in the States. Again, loved playing the sport. She's had a few health issues, so she had to come home due to her health, and she's becoming a chiropractor now, so really proud of her and that journey. And then the 14-year-old twins have never really shown or wanted to be taking sport at that next level, at a performance level. They love playing sport, and they play netball and basketball for their school. But they've never, and to be honest, we've never encouraged it. We've parented our 2 older kids differently to how we parented the 2 younger ones. This will sound really funny. It's actually not that enjoyable to have high performing kids, because every time you go to something, they expect to be high performing at it. And when they get in the car, if they didn't high perform, they're not happy. Whereas the 2 younger ones, they go and play sport. They get in the car happy every single time. We get home, we go and get ice cream down the road after a game, and they don't care if they played good or bad. They're just happy they ran around with their mates. That's far more enjoyable, which sounds crazy coming from someone who's in that high performance environment. But the older 2, and again, I didn't parent very well. When those car ride homes after basketball, I'd be telling them all the things they didn't do right, thinking I was trying to help them. But all it was doing is crushing them, knowing their dad was, and again, I genuinely was doing it to help. But, and I look back now and I go, man, I shouldn't have been. I should have just got in and said, you played well, because that's what my parents used to say. Get in and go, a good game. And they never critiqued anything. So I would leave thinking I played really good, and probably didn't. Whereas my kids would get in, even if they played well, I'd point out the things that they didn't do well. So they'd always feel like there was room to improve. And, I look back at it now and I think, man, I should have just got in the car and said, great game, you played well. And they'll go, no, I didn't do this. I go, no, you did. And then that's it, and then just go and enjoy an ice cream together, whatever it is.
But you didn't, and now they're ruined for life.
That's right, exactly, that's right.
Oh, no. It's a good bit of self-reflection there.
It is.
You do the best you can with the
as a
info you have
parent,
at
you
the
just,
time.
exactly, you just do the best you can.
How's it been for them having the Boucher name? Has
hard, especially Mackenzie. She struggled with it, and again, girls are probably more brutal than boys. Jaden copped it a little bit, and again, he would kind of take it in his stride, and he's quite a reserved guy anyway, so I think he wouldn't say if it bothered him. He tended to play better when someone would say something to him. He would tend to use that as fuel. Mackenzie, on the other hand, not that it didn't make her play any worse, but she would really internalise after a game. It would really hurt her, especially if someone said, you only made the team because of your dad or something like that, and that would really hurt her. And she didn't understand why people would say mean things like that, and that's hard for especially when you're a teenage girl coming through. It's it's hard for them to wear that. And I've got a lot of mates who have been, Hall of Famers and stuff and have kids coming through, and everyone experiences the same thing. So it's really hard. So much so that Mackenzie didn't want her surname written on the back of her uniform because she didn't want the average person knowing who she was, which was sad for me because I'm really proud of our family name and we wanted our kids to all be proud to have it, but she didn't want it on her uniform, which was hard as a parent. But we would try and coach our kids through it and just say, like people might say things, but a lot of it comes from jealousy. A lot of it comes from just trying to hurt you and try and put you off your game. So don't let it bother you. And and again, that's just part of it. And it's funny, the younger ones, they're probably too young. A lot of their age group don't even know who I am, so they don't even know. Yeah,
yeah. Oh, it's rough, eh? Oh, that's heartbreaking to hear.
But it's. I mean, anyone who's got a surname on their back, right? They're going to be a target, and that's just how it is, And I think it's anyone you speak to that has children playing that's played at a high level. I'm sure they've got the same thing.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's talk about the Setback playing career. So, your first pro contract, what was that worth? Or your first paid?
Well, it's a funny story. So it was we were called the Celtic Stars, the Auckland team, and I can remember I signed a contract for $50. What I thought was $50 a week. But no, it was just $50 total. So I went in and got my first check for $50 and I went and spent it. And the next week I went in and the lady said, oh, no, there's no paycheck here for you. And I said, oh, that's weird. And so she's like, let me check. So she goes out and makes a phone call and comes back and says, no, you picked up your paycheck last week. And I said, yeah, that was last week's paycheck. What about this week? And she said, no, that was your contract. So I went home and checked my contract. Yeah, it was right. It was $50 total. So that was my first ever contract at 17 years old. The worst thing is when I went in to pick it up, I was with Pero Cameron, and he was on good money back then. I don't know, when I say good money, he was probably on like $200 a week. And so he'd picked up his pay. And so we were together and I was like, oh, I wonder why mine's not here, And then when I got home, I was really embarrassed that I hadn't read my contract properly, but also that I'd signed for $50 for the whole season. Yeah. But to be honest, I was stoked as a 17-year-old kid to have $50. I was like, sweet, but I spent it all in one go. That was the worst thing.
Just how many games? Like, what was the game?
Oh,
like $3 a game?
Yeah. It was not a very good ratio. When you had counted your petrol money to get there and stuff, it wasn't a very good ratio. But
yeah, even when you account for inflation and things like that,
absolutely.
It's still a shit deal.
Yeah.
Was there a particular moment when you realised like basketball could be your full-time gig?
Probably when I first got selected for Auckland, I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And there were guys above me that, you watch playing the game that had played for New Zealand and Pero, who was a year older than me. And he was kind of like right on that fringe of the New Zealand team and then made it like a year later. Like it was awesome going, oh, wow, that you could do this. And that was right in the time where people were going off to, they just started going off to America for basketball. And I can remember turning down a scholarship in the US because I didn't have the internet. I didn't know what was in the US. I knew about the NBA and stuff like that, but I didn't know what these colleges had to offer. And so I chose not to go because I was playing for Auckland and I was with Nikki at the time as well. And not that she was I remember her saying to me, oh, just go, like I'll go to college in America and we'll meet over there or whatever. So she wasn't holding me back at all. But I just thought I was happy where I was and I was happy playing for Auckland. And then as that kind of a few years into that, I realised that I was getting better and better from training every day. And so that's when I started thinking I could do this as a job and play professionally. But in those days, there was no breakers, so there was no national, there was no team playing and professionally. It was all semi-professional. So the only way to get a job was to go overseas. So I was trying to work really hard to get overseas. And then lo and behold, breakers came along in 2003. Wow. So it kind of answered all the dreams.
Yeah, I mean, the career ended up like pretty damn good, so you can't have any complaints about that. But do you occasionally think about the scholarship thing and how, like a sliding doors sort of moment, how life would look different?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think about, all the things I talked about, my weaknesses, would they have got better in college, would they have got worse? So many kids have different experiences in college at the moment. Some have a really good experience, some have not so good. So it's hard to know if I would have been a better player if I went. I would like to think I would have been, but you just don't know. And again, I'm really happy with the career I had here. I don't have any real regrets, but I often think if I'd gone to college, what would it have looked like?
Yeah, this might be a dumb question, but for anyone that's like me that doesn't know too much about basketball, like what's the difference between being like a really good, like superstar New Zealand level player like yourself and making the NBA?
Yeah. So again, there's a massive difference, especially now. It's a lot harder now, I think, to make the NBA. Like again, the chances of a New Zealand kid making it now is really hard. And the reason I say that is the level of athleticism alone is like up here, like and your natural ability can't match that. So if your natural ability can't match where the kind of like benchmark is, you've got to be really, really good at something else or some other things. And so if you're a kid from New Zealand and you can't reach that athleticism bar, what are the things you're going to bring to the NBA? So a good example is Steven Adams, very good athlete in New Zealand, probably in American terms, not a high level athlete, but super physically strong, like probably the strongest guy in the NBA, and just a real menace and sets unbelievably strong screens, but gets on the offensive glass. These are things that he brings to a team that, when he first started, they could foresee him being that player. And when he was younger, he was more athletic and things, but he's now carved out a niche in the NBA that is really good. But the game, even when he first started to where the NBA is now, is totally different. They're not looking for players like him. The only reason he's still in the NBA is because they know what he can do and it's effective. But they're not looking for a guy that can do that. They're looking for a 7-foot guy who can shoot threes and dunk on anyone and block shots. That's what they're looking for. Not every team can have that because not many 7-footers can do that. But what they're looking for now in the NBA is they're looking for young guys that can kind of have tendencies that would lean towards doing that. So it's very hard to make it just on your physical makeup alone, let alone your own basketball ability.
Did your playing career ever overlap with Steven Adams?
We played in his first year playing was I think it was one of my last years or one of my last few years. So yeah, we overlapped. We played actually against each other at ASB Stadium in Koei there. We played and he was good young player. I think he was like 17 at the time. Yeah, so briefly crossed paths.
Yeah, did you have any way of like thinking, shit, this kid's got something special?
Oh, I knew he was special. Like he was again, think about a supreme athlete and a strong kid, and I just remember, and moved really well. I remember thinking, and I'd played against all of his older brothers, so I knew the gene pool and they were all very good players in New Zealand. And, so I knew that he was just another one of the Adams coming through that was a good basketball player and a good, strong physical basketball player. And then obviously from there he went off to college and followed his NBA dream after that.
He's doing all right, eh? I think he's on a bit more than $50 a season.
Oh, mate, he would have been...
What's he on, like millions, eh? Like crazy,
I think his last contract was around 150 million or something like that.
Damn, that's insane. So, who have we had in the NBA? Is it Stephen and Sean?
Sean, yep. And Kirk Penny had a what we call a cup of tea in the NBA, so he, I think, picked up a 10-day contract, and so he briefly... went to the NBA, and then in the women's side, Megan Compain in the WNBA. Yes. So not many have made it. Like I say, Kirk Penny was a world-class player, and even he didn't make it for very long. We had other players, Pero Cameron, I think if he was in his prime, the way they look at international players now, I believe he would be in the NBA as well. Phil Jones is another one, I think, probably had potential to make the NBA. Mark Dickel was very close and ended up having a serious accident right before the draft and didn't get drafted, but probably would have been drafted. What people don't know about him is he led the whole of the NCAA college teams in assists of all the colleges in America. He was the number one in assists, and I think it was at 9 assists a game or something, which was unheard of. So again, he's someone who probably would have been drafted, I think, if he hadn't had the accident. So we had a few come close, but again, it has even changed even more now, and it's more predicated to big athletes now. If you're not 6'7" and above and athletic, your chance of making the NBA is pretty low.
Yeah, you mentioned Sean Marks, your old teammate. He's had a remarkable career, hasn't he?
Unreal.
Phenomenal.
I mean, I don't think New Zealand appreciate the position that he's in as GM of the Brooklyn Nets. That a New Zealander is running, an NBA franchise like that. He's phenomenal guy. I've spent a lot of time with Sean and playing, but also outside of it since his time in Brooklyn. And he's just a phenomenal guy and, big responsibility where he is. And he's carved out a 10, 12 year NBA GM career, which is a long time in the NBA. Not a lot of the guys last that period of time, so he's done really well.
Yeah, and dealing with like billions and billions of dollars, right?
And
like
dealing with athletes
money.
that are worth, millions and millions of dollars, and trying to be able to put that all into a winning formula. It's really pretty tough job.
Unreal. And in your job, sorry, we're bouncing around all over the place here. In your job as the boss of Basketball New Zealand, did you have any dealings or interactions with Stephen Adams?
Yep, for sure. So I spent a bit of time with Stephen in the US, and and Stephen and I have got a good relationship. And his one of his brothers is one of my best mates, and and so my connection through Stephen has been pretty strong. So. Again, we've had a few catch-ups and we get on well and stuff like that. So, yeah, I would call it a strong relationship.
Is he salty with Basketball New Zealand?
Not at all. I think that's a stigma that's, again, in the media. And was he from a younger age? I don't know. Again, I haven't actually delved into that. But ever since I've been at Basketball New Zealand, he's had no issue with Basketball New Zealand and or myself. We've got, a strong relationship, and if there was anything there, we would have ironed it out by now, but it's never ever come up in a conversation.
As president of the Breakers now, how are you going to get him over the line?
We would love to. Absolutely. We just, when the time's right and the phone call comes in, we'll be ready.
So when he's like 45, maybe?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, it'd still be a handy player to have on your team. Just some random little ones here. Is trash talking a thing in basketball?
100%.
Yeah, was it?
100%. Not for me.
Were you
No, I'm not quick-witted enough to be a good trash talker.
So you're in the shower afterwards thinking, damn it,
I should have said that. Yeah, exactly. The next day probably for me. But no, I used to enjoy playing trash talkers, though, because I loved extra motivation to want to play hard. And if someone was, especially if they were trash talking me about how I was defending them or something, I loved it because I knew I was in their head. If they weren't talking to me, they weren't worried about me. But if they were talking to me, they were worried about what I was doing, or they were upset about what I was doing. I had no comeback other than shut up, and probably had a few swear words in between that. But I had no comeback. So I never really engaged in trash talk. I try to let my game speak for itself.
What was some of the best trash talk you got? What sort of things was it really offensive or
some of it is, some of it gets a little bit below the line with might be race involved, might be calling you something white boy or something like that. But again, I generally didn't engage back, so it never got to the point of probably too out of control. But there's a lot of talking going on in a basketball game, and a lot of, when someone scores on you, they tell you that you ain't shit, or that you can't defend anyone, or whatever it is. A lot of guys would talk like that, and it's probably more so nowadays than probably even what it was back then. But New Zealanders generally aren't trash talkers. Well, certainly in my era weren't trash talkers. We wouldn't talk a lot. We'd say the occasional thing, but I think the newer generation have been watching a lot of the NBA, and that happens a lot there. So they've ended up picking up a lot of the tendencies from the NBA.
I read a story about you. Did you once forget your boots and borrow someone's slip-on shoes?
Yeah, I did.
What the hell? What happened? First of all, how do you surely you have not superstitions, but like a routine or a structure. How do you forget your shoes?
Exactly, it's exactly. So we were playing. I think I was playing for Perth. I think at the time, I was playing for Perth, and we were playing. And usually, when you play Illawarra, you stay in Sydney and you just drive down for the game and drive back. So it's about an hour and a half away in Illawarra. And we were playing Sydney, so I remember having my shoes on the bed, and we had these backpacks that weren't very big, so your shoes couldn't fit in the backpack. So you kind of put your showering clothes in the backpack, or your stuff in the backpack, and then you pick up your shoes and carry them. And I must have got distracted somehow, and I put my backpack on and just left the room and left my shoes sitting on the bed. And so I got to the locker room, and I remember sitting in the locker room, and you open your bag up to start getting changed for the game. And we'd just driven an hour and a half from the motel, and I opened my bag, and I saw no shoes. And at that moment, I realised I don't put my shoes in my bag, I carry them. So I went, they must be in the van. So I quickly raced out to the van, no shoes. And the worst thing about it was I wasn't wearing sneakers to the game. I was wearing scuffs or slides. So I had literally no shoes on. I had socks in my bag, but no shoes. And one of the guys on the team had worn slip-on shoes, sneakers, but slip-on sneakers. So I literally had to put his slip-on sneakers on and play in slip-on sneakers. And luckily we happened to be the same size. But the worst thing about it is all basketball players, or not all, most basketball players have orthotics because your feet are going to get messed up. So they're built for your feet. So he had the same orthotics he took out of his shoes to put in his playing shoes to make sure he had his shoes. So his shoes had no inner soles in them. So not only did I play with these slip-on shoes, they had no inner soles. So it's like it was just running on, the worst possible scenario. And actually, to be fair, I actually played pretty good in the game. Like, I actually had a decent game with these slip-on shoes. But occasionally I would run and I'd feel my heel coming out of the shoe because I couldn't tighten them with shoelaces. So that never happened ever again after that.
Is there video of that online?
Oh, it must be. No one knew, though. So no one knew at the time. And again, no one, we just laughed about it after the game, but no one really knew about it. And no one really talked about it. But yeah.
Of all the titles you've won, which one do you think would mean the most to you and why?
Man, it's a really hard one. I think the one that sticks out the most was, again, because I single-handedly nearly blew it, but also won the game for my team. So we're in Nelson. I was playing for Waikato at the time, and we were down in Nelson at the away visiting team's gym, and we ended up being tied ball game, and I got the ball and was dribbling down the court to try and make the winning shot, and I got fouled. So I ended up going to the free throw line and having to shoot 2 free throws. Well, usually what you do in a game is you make the first free. I think there was like 0.6 seconds left on the clock. So made the first free throw. And normally what you'd do is you'd miss the second on purpose. And I can remember making the first and kind of silenced the whole crowd because we were 1 point up, and with only 0.6, there's a chance you losing from there is impossible. And I remember turning around and Pero Cameron high-fiving me, and he goes, "Missed the second one." And I was like, yeah. And in my mind, and I wasn't the greatest free throw shooter. And I was like, no, I want to prove to everyone I can make 2 free throws. And so I made the second free throw. And again, the crowd was all sad. Well, they quickly inbounded to Phil Jones, and he threw like a 3/4 court hook shot that nearly went in. And if that had gone in, we would have lost the game. And I can remember seeing it in the air, watching the flight of it going, that's going in. That's going to go in. And it ended up just missing. And I remember thinking to myself, my own ego nearly got in the way of us winning a championship because I wanted to prove everyone that I could make 2 free throws. And but it was a really cool to be able to be responsible at the end of it. And to be honest, I didn't play that well in the game, so I kind of made up for it by making these free throws and winning the game. And yeah, that's probably one that sticks in my head the most. And again, anytime you win in a away team's venue is really special. Yeah.
If Phil's shot had got in, you would have been beating yourself up. But would you have been in trouble with the team?
Oh, for sure. Especially, I mean, if Pero tells you to miss a shot, you're going to miss a shot. Like you don't. I would have hated to even look at him after that had happened because he'd told me to miss it and I didn't miss it.
Was he mad at you regardless, or was he swept up in the celebration?
I think everyone just thought I actually made it by accident because I wasn't that good at shooting, so they probably thought I made it by accident. So no one was really mad.
Oh, you're being real self-deprecating here. Okay, so there was the 2000 Olympics, which you missed out on.
Correct.
Is this a career low?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It was nearly a career-defining moment.
Yeah, I had Honey Hidemi Smiler on the podcast earlier this week, and she got a phone call saying she wasn't going to the Olympics. I think it was when it was in Rio, and she processed it by going to a bottle store and buying 2 bottles of port, and she was drunk before midday. What was your experience of missing out? Should you have been in the squad? Were you expecting to be in the squad?
Yeah, I was. I was playing really good basketball at the time, and I thought I would make the team. I really did. So when I didn't make it, it's when you truly believe you should be in a team and you don't make it is when it hurts more. And again, but I'd never been in the team before, so it would have been knocking some regular Tall Black out of the squad. And there was a lot. The squad had a kind of mixture of younger guys, and there was a lot of older guys that were in the squad, very similar to the 2002 team. But a lot of the older guys were coming to the end of their careers, and had been in the Tall Blacks for some of them 10 years. And so, when I think back realistically now, I think about why I thought I'd make the team was because I was playing really well. But also, if I think back realistically, I was like, these guys have been in the team 10 years, grafting away, and they're still good basketball players. To knock them out of their spot, you're going to have to be way better than them. You know, like you're going to have to be the single biggest differentiator. So, was I disappointed? Yes. Was it a career moment? Yes, because I remember this is again, you talk about being humbled. I remember, missing out on the team and going home and talking to Nikki, and she was like, well, maybe you just weren't good enough. Like maybe you didn't train hard enough for it. And probably not in those words. She was probably a bit more sensitive than that, but it was kind of my thought, I was like, man, maybe I didn't. What could I have done? And actually, from that moment, after that happened, I ended up saying I didn't want to ever have that feeling again. So I was going to train my ass off. But I was working full time at the time, and I didn't really have the time to train. So I was like, I know what, I'm going to give up my job, and I'm going to start my own coaching business, going around schools coaching basketball, because I'll have a basketball in my hand all day, every day, and I can practice in between training and in between coaching. And so that's what I did. So I threw my job in and started my own coaching business and started going around schools teaching, and primary and intermediate basketball. So I had a ball in my hand all day, every day. And that was my sacrifice. And then from that next year on, I made the Tall Blacks, and I never left that uniform behind until I retired. So that was kind of my dedication in that moment where I realised that I missed out on something really big. This is how confident thought I was going to make the team. Nikki had already booked tickets to go to the Sydney Olympics. So we ended up going to the Sydney Olympics. I ended up getting a ticket and going and being a spectator and watching the guys play and supporting them from the stands, because she'd already booked to go, because I was like, we're going to make the team. I was going to make the team. So it was cool, but it was brutal as well. It was brutal knowing that you're not there. But I stayed ready in case someone got injured, and you never know when those things are going to happen.
Sitting in the stand with this.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, even if you had slides on, I'm sure you could borrow some shoes from.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I forgot that you had a job. You were like a travel agent for many years.
I was
Crazy.
A travel agent. Yeah, 7 years.
Wow. How was it? Yeah, what was that like?
I was lucky. I worked for Stars Sports Tours and or Stars Travel originally, and then Stars Sports Tours. So I actually used to do my main job when I was there. Towards the end of it was we had the contract for Sansa, and so we did the Super Rugby. So I did all the Super Rugby teams and Springboks, All Blacks, Wallabies. We used to do all their travel. So it was a pretty cool job. And then we'd take sports tours away to like the Bledisloe Cup and Melbourne Grand Prix, Melbourne Open, and kind of taking tours away. Pretty cool job. When I look back, fun. I was only young when I was doing it too. I was, I think I started when I was 18, and then, I was in my early 20s. So taking away these tour groups to, taking away like 800 people to a Bledisloe Cup game. It's pretty cool job.
Feels like it's a job that involves a lot of admin.
It is a lot of admin, and again,
probably actually in a way prepared you for the desk jobs you've got now.
Yeah, it really did. I mean, to be honest, like when I was working there, they were really good. They would allow me to go and play for New Zealand and things like that. So they were always very good and giving me time off to go to my games. I can remember this was back in the day where, again, if you needed to change a booking, you had to go into the office to change the booking. And I can remember going on my way to a game in like Dunedin, and I would have to go, I'll get my boss. So I'd have to ring my boss, who would have to go in on a Saturday and drive into the office and make the changes in the office. So again, very grateful that they allowed me to do that, and because most bosses wouldn't want to hear from a 20-year-old kid and say, I need you to go in the office and do these changes. Yeah.
So, after the disappointment of the 2000 Sydney Olympics came, this must be your career high, 2002?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, so fourth in the World Champs in 2002. What are your reflections on that tournament?
So mixed emotions about that tournament, actually. So we'd prepared really well for the first game, who was Russia, who were a powerhouse in basketball at the time. And I remember beating them in the first game, and everyone at the tournament was kind of like, oh, New Zealand upset Russia. Oh, that's unusual. And then we kind of started having more success. We beat a few other teams throughout our pool play, and everyone was like, oh, this New Zealand team. But no one knew anything about us because, again, there wasn't a lot on you could find online. There was no scouting, and we played a different style to every team. So we kind of caught teams by surprise. And I remember we ended up having a crossover. I think it was Puerto Rico. We ended up having to play Puerto Rico in the quarterfinal, and Puerto Rico hadn't lost the game the whole tournament. They'd beaten USA. They were a pretty formidable team, and but we were pretty confident that we matched up well with them, and our style would be their kryptonite. And so we ended up beating them and making it through to the semi-final. And the semi-final is the one that I play over and over again in my head. We were playing Serbia in the grand final, in the semi-final, and we got up big on them. We got up by like 20 in the first half, and I remember thinking, we've got them, we've got them right where we want them. And they went into the halftime break, and they came out of the halftime break and just were really physical with us and really hammered us inside because they were way bigger than us. And just started getting offensive rebounds and putbacks, and slowly they're just eating into this lead, eating, and eventually coming and passing us and winning the game. And I can remember that locker room. We went in the locker room, and we were just like sick to our stomachs that we'd let this one go. Like, we should have been playing for a gold medal, and we probably deserved to be, but we just had one bad half of basketball that we just couldn't get back. And the next day, I think it was, we ended up having to play for a bronze medal game, and we just weren't in the right frame of mind. We were dejected, and we shouldn't have been, because you're still playing for a medal at a World Cup. You think we'd be really on a high, and to be honest, we were playing Germany, who had played earlier in the tournament, and they'd beat us earlier in the tournament, and we matched up okay with them. They had this pretty good player called Dirk Nowitzki, who was pretty good, and you know, he went on to you know, play well in that game, and but we ended up losing that game as well. But we look back and think about, we should have medalled at that, but then you reflect on being the top 4 in the world, and it's pretty phenomenal, really. And Pero Cameron was named in the All-Star 5 in that tournament. Pero was unbelievable, but so was, you know, we had Phil Jones was amazing, Kirk Penny was amazing in that tournament. Sean Marks got his eye poked out halfway through the tournament, so he ended up not being able to play half the tournament. Had we had Sean for the whole duration of that tournament, we probably would have won a medal, and we probably could have even possibly won. When we lose our only NBA player to an injury, you know, and he ended up watching the game with glasses on for the rest of the tournament, but wasn't able to step on the floor. But had we had him, maybe we did better even than what we did. But we reflect on it now and think about coming fourth is pretty cool, and just the impact it made back home here was pretty special.
Yeah, it was massive back here, but were you guys, so it was in like mid-America, right? Was it Minneapolis or something?
Indianapolis. Yep.
So this is sort of like pre-internet. I don't know, maybe there was a bit of MySpace or something, I don't know. But like, did you get like fax messages from...
That's exactly what we got.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So our manager...
Like a team hotel room with... Yeah.
Our manager would get on the bus every day, and he'd stand at the front and he'd read out these fax messages that people had sent us. And there were funny ones, there were hilarious ones in there. And that was kind of our, you know, we'd drive to the stadium, which was maybe a 15-minute drive, and he would be reading these fax messages out. And we started... Each day, these piles were getting bigger and bigger. And so then he would start passing them because it got too many to read. So he'd just pass them around and we'd all just read them at different times. And the one was for us, Rebel Sports sold out of basketballs during that tournament,
Wow.
which we were just like amazed. And so after that tournament finished, we went, everyone went their separate ways. Some came back to New Zealand. I went on holiday with Nikki, and Jaden, who was just young then, and we went away and had a week on holiday. And I can remember coming back to Auckland after everything finished, and I was walking through the airport, and people were like, "Oh yeah, congratulations, Dylan," you know, like calling me on a first name basis, and I was just like, "Oh, thank you." I was like, "Who was that?" And Nicky would go, "Who's that?" And I go, "I don't know." And it was happening everywhere. And I realised, it's because they've been watching the World Champs, and no one knew my name when I left New Zealand, and I came back in. All of a sudden, everyone knew who I was, and was like, giving clapping as we were walking through, and it was just me on my own with my family. And that's from that moment on, I was like, man, this captured the whole of the nation. And so then everywhere I went after that, whether it was a supermarket or any people would always want to talk about the World Champs, and it was like, man, did everyone watch these games? And it felt like it. Because it was in the paper every day, and it was on TV every day, and it was on a pretty good time. It was when kind of like during the day and stuff, so people would take time off work to watch the games, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah, and then you guys won Halberg Awards.
That's right.
You won like the overall like Team of the Year award, and I think Tab won Coach of the Year.
Yep.
Yeah, which never happens.
No, and again, I truly believe for me, I accepted the trophy and gave a speech, and I truly believe because I did that, that kind of, then all of a sudden media interviews were coming, and I was doing all the media interviews. I became like the face of that, because a lot of guys were still away. I think Pero was off playing a professional contract. Other guys were everywhere, but I was in Auckland and I was available. So I did a lot of the media stuff, which helped build my own personal profile, which I didn't realize at the time. I was just doing normal interviews because someone asked me to do it, because I thought, well, our sport needs media, so I'll do everything that's available. But it helped build my own personal profile from there.
Yeah, I suppose you're in your late 20s at the time. The last thing you're thinking is, this is good for brand Boucher.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there was no such thing as influencer or anything back then. I don't even think we had social media back then.
No. Yeah, in hindsight, what do you think it was that made that team so special?
Again, I think we had a bunch of guys that understood their roles. We had a bunch of guys that were high basketball IQ players. We bought into a system. We worked our butts off leading into that. Like, we had some really good coaches. Tab Baldwin and Nenad Vucinic were probably both ahead of their time at the time, and so they brought a style of play that no one had seen before on the world stage, and so we played differently to most teams. I also think with that group, again, we just had guys who had a lot of experience in the black jersey by that time, but were still kind of young and fresh. And like guys like Phil and Kirk and Paulie and Pero had all been and Mark Dickel had been in the Tall Blacks for a few years before that. So they had good experience under their belts, but were still relatively young from a athlete point of view. And so it just happened that it all kind of aligned nicely all at the same time. So, just a pretty special group to be a part of.
Yeah, when you guys connect either in real life or in one of your group chats, how do you reflect on that? Is the Yugoslavia game like a what if, or?
I think it's funny. Not many of us have talked about it together.
Still?
Yeah, still. It's still probably a bit of a sore moment, and occasionally it gets brought up every now and then, and we all just kind of drop our heads, but. But again, we're all still good mates. We all stay in contact, and not, we're typical guys. We're not on a regular thing, but when we do, we kind of still have banter and laugh about things together.
It's a fascinating insight, into high performance sport. 'Cause I'm just thinking of some other people I've had on the podcast, like Dion Nash, Jimmy Neesham, and Shane Cameron, and they've all got what ifs, things from their career that haunt them, even though it's a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's what drives you too a lot of the time. It drives you to want to be better. So when you get that opportunity again, you're gonna capitalize on it. And a lot of times you don't get that opportunity again. That's the reality, And I think back to 2004. That's pretty much that same team, give or take a couple of players. We went to the Olympics and we thought we were going to do really well. And we were probably playing better when we went to the Olympics than what we were in 2002. And we ended up coming 10th because we lost every game by 2 points here or 3 points, and this 1 or 2 shots in every game we lost, and had we capitalised on those losses and won, we could have won a medal at the Olympics, and that's how close we were, but we just didn't win the ones that counted, whereas in 2002 we won the games that counted and the crossover games and stuff. So and that's sport, honestly. That's why we love sport, and that's why we hate sport.
Yeah, this is a big period for you. There's a lot going on. So there's the World Champs in 2002, the launch of the Breakers in 2003, and the Olympics. Since you mentioned the Olympics, the one that you did get to go to, we'll talk about that. So 2004, I've had Susie Bates on the podcast. She was there representing the New Zealand, the women's basketball team.
Yeah.
She had a crazy story about ending up going on a bus with the US guys and hanging out with LeBron and Kobe, and then being in a booth with David Beckham. What was your Olympic experience like?
Probably not quite as good as that, but I loved it. The Olympics was cool. Just to be with the best athletes in the world was pretty special. Being in the village was special in itself. But again, being able to, for us, being able to just be opening ceremony was special. To be able to be there with all the New Zealand athletes, guys and girls that you'd looked up to, and wow, what a hero, for your country, and then seeing them win gold medals and bringing it back to the New Zealand house and things like that, and being able to celebrate everyone's success there. Again, personally, it wasn't a great experience from a basketball winning percentages or perception, but we enjoyed being at the Olympics, and then when our tournament finished, we obviously enjoyed the Olympic stuff, being around it and being able to let your hair down a little bit, but certainly don't have any great stories like that.
You didn't meet anyone cool in the food court?
I met lots of cool people, but none we didn't hang out, and I wasn't fortunate enough to be with LeBron or anyone like that. I can remember we went out one night with the Spanish basketball team, and they had Pau Gasol was one of their main players, who was an NBA player at the time, and I can remember that was back, and we were still pretty broke athletes back in those days, and these guys were wealthy EuroLeague, legends or NBA players, and I can remember they invited us over to their table, and they were getting bottle service, and we'd never heard of bottle service. We didn't know what bottle service was. We just go to the bar and buy a drink. These guys had bottle service. They were just bringing bottles of vodka to the table. We'd never seen that in our life. So, we can just drink this vodka. Like, what? That was kind of the first time we'd ever known about that stuff. And again, just the difference when you're with high rollers and how they drink compared to how your casual broke athlete drinks.
The other half. Eh?
Yeah.
What about the food court at the Olympics Village?
Yeah.
It's a mythical thing.
It is, and I love food. So it's dangerous because you can have anything you want at any time of the day. I know the McDonald's line at the start of the Olympics is very quiet. By the end of the Olympics, there's queues and queues of people. But every type of food you can think of, any drink you can think of, every ice cream you can think of, like it's so dangerous. Like it's so dangerous. And the best thing is being in there is people watching. You're watching your 15-year-old gymnasts walk in, and watching what they eat, and to the powerlifters walking in and what they eat. And I remember the handball players, these big European handball players, their plates would just be overflowing in food, and they'd just be eating just monstrous amounts. Thinking, far out, some people can eat. So just cool to people watch and be like, oh, there's that, high jump guy that won a gold medal last night, or there's the, pole vault or whatever, like it was kind of like you'd recognise them because you'd watch them on TV, and then they'd walk past you in the food court and you're like, huh, there they are, or some of them would walk around wearing their gold medals and stuff. Like, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Who were the stars of the New Zealand team in that campaign? Was that the Ever Swindells? Were they?
Yes, they were in that.
Yeah, right. About that time.
Yeah,
eh?
I think it was. They were. Geez, you're testing my memory now. I'm trying to think who else had.
It's 21 years ago.
Valerie.
Oh,
yeah,
Valerie.
Yeah. Valerie.
Really? Even back then?
I think it was Valerie. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And the rowers were big.
Like Rob Waddell, maybe?
Waddell, yeah, and also the Hamish Bond and Eric Murray.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Well, great. Have you got the 5 rings tattooed in
I
you?
don't.
What? I thought that was mandatory.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I've often seen it and I thought I should get that. But yeah, no, I don't.
It's so cool that you got to experience that, eh?
Yeah, it's
really
cool.
neat.
It's a cool experience.
So, just going back again, so the Breakers launched in 2003. Was that coincidental, or did that come off the back of
Came off the back, yeah.
It did?
Yep, came off the back of 2002 success. And, there was a group of businessmen and Jeff Green that had got together and kind of talked about it and got the license and, made it all come to fruition.
Yeah, what was that like, being involved in starting up a franchise in a team?
Again, first time I was ever a professional athlete, so, I don't even remember how much my first contract was. It wasn't very much. I was just excited to just be able to give up my real job and do basketball full time. So that was pretty cool to be able to do that first and foremost. And I was in, like I say, my mid-20s at that stage. So I was ready to take on the professional lifestyle and loved it. Loved it from the get-go. It was hard just changing to that kind of like everyday, daily grind but it was fun. I loved it. Yeah, loved every moment of it.
Yeah, was the money all right? It must have been okay for you to give up your travel agent job.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I wasn't getting paid much to be a travel agent, to be honest, so it wasn't hard to give that up. But no, it paid enough to be able to live on. But again, the money now compared to back then is night and day.
Oh, someone asked me to ask you about the Yao Ming incident, and I didn't know what they were talking about. I looked it up on YouTube, so... what game was this?
So we're playing China at the 2004 Olympics, and we needed to beat China to go through to the quarterfinals, I think it was, and it was neck and neck the whole way, and Yao Ming was absolutely killing us in the game. Like, I think he finished with 40 points or something. Like, he had a phenomenal... I don't think he missed a shot the whole game. And so we're getting towards the fourth quarter, and Yao Ming was on 4 fouls. So me being me, I was like, how do we get the 5th foul on Yao Ming? And we tried various things and couldn't. So... he got a rebound and he came down with it and I stole it from him. And as I stole it off him, he turned to me to get it back off me, and I dumped it off to Sean Marks, and Sean Marks absolutely posterized him with this amazing dunk right on him, like right on his head, which not many people posterize Yao Ming. And I thought, here's my opportunity. So I jumped in front of Yao Ming and I was like, in your face, and I probably said a few other things, in your face. I knew that he was going to push me, 100% knew it. So I just agitated him, and as soon as I sort of felt him put his hands on my chest, I go, oh, I've got this guy. And he just went, and he gave me a hard push. And to be honest, I didn't even need to flop because it was a hard push. And he just pushed me and told me to get out of his face, and I went sliding along the floor. And the referee just gave me the get up. No foul called at all. So got nothing. I just got up. We carried on playing. And then after the game, we ended up losing. After the game, we were sitting in, there was like a players' lounge at the stadium, and where you go in and get a drink and you get some food and stuff. And I was sitting in there, and I kind of had some ice on my elbow and different parts of my body, which everyone does. And Yao Ming came walking in and saw me, and he comes over and he put his arm around me. He goes, oh, was your sore elbow from me? And I was like, no. And I was like, no, and I kind of explained to him that it was no malice, and he was trying to apologise, and I was like, no, not at all. I was trying to get your 5th foul, and he said, no, I was only on 3 fouls, and I was like, no, you're on 4 fouls, and so and even to this day, I've seen Yao Ming several times after that, and we talk about it, and he still swears that he was on 3 fouls, and I swear he was on 4 fouls. But had we fouled him out, I think we would have won that game, and so that was a pivotal moment in the game that I tried something crafty, but it backfired and just made me look stupid because he just threw me on the ground like a little kid.
Oh, it's an amazing clip. Yeah, it looks like he's bullying you. You're a big dude, and you look tiny next to him.
Yeah, he is a huge man.
Who else did you play? Drop some names.
So in that Olympics, I remember we played the US team in a pre-Olympic game. So it was LeBron James and
Lamar Odom was
Lamar Odom was in that team. I think he was in that team. Yeah, Dwayne Wade was in that team. Tim Duncan.
Kobe.
Yeah. I don't know if Kobe was in that team. I don't think Kobe. Right. Oh, or was he? Might have been in. Yeah. I think Kobe was in that team. Yeah. They were all pretty young, but they were so good. There was NBA. Every team had NBA players. Russia, we played Andrei Kirilenko, Dirk Nowitzki for Germany, Pau Gasol for Spain. You know, the list goes on. Every team had NBA players on them. So it was a pretty much who's who at that tournament.
Yeah, how does it feel to reflect on this stuff?
It's cool. It's cool to reflect. It's funny. It makes you feel really old, to be fair. You know, like now it seems a long time ago, and it was a long time ago. You know, we're in 2025 now, far out. It's, like 20 odd years ago. So, yeah, it makes you feel old, but it's cool to be able to reflect and know that you did that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, you've done some stuff.
Yeah.
How's your body temperature? Should we turn the aircon on?
Yeah, chuck it on.
Yeah. Have a sip of water. No, these are great. I'm loving these stories. Yeah, in 2014, Order of Merit. So you get a medal for that. Where's the medal for that? Is that in a drawer with the bits of net and things?
Yeah, no, it's in a separate drawer. It's funny because I just recently did a photo shoot that they needed it, and I had to scramble around and find it, and I found it in my bedside drawer. But it's funny because I've got quite a few cats, 5 cats and 2 dogs, and so I opened up this medal and it had like dog fur and stuff all in it. So I was trying to like quickly get it all off before this thing, and yeah, it doesn't get open very often, and it's cool. It's something I'm quite proud of because it means it's for services to basketball, and basketball's been really good to me, and I've tried to give back to the game, whether it's through coaching or whether it's through administration or volunteering or whatever it is. And when I got that, I was like, that's pretty special because someone's acknowledged that work that I've been putting in.
Well, this was 11 years ago, and like your contribution has just got greater since then.
Yeah.
So how does that come about? Do you get is it a phone call from someone? You get sent an envelope?
Yeah, I think I got just sent a letter or an email, I think it was, saying that I've been nominated for it and that I've been successful. So again, you don't really know who's nominated you, so you just know that someone has nominated you and someone's approved you, and I think that nomination goes to Basketball New Zealand and they approve it. So yeah, pretty cool that they approved it, and yeah, here I am with a few letters after my name.
So good. Sorry for not introducing you by using the letters at the beer. And so you go to Government House. So who goes? Nikki
go
goes?
To government. Yeah, Nikki goes. My mum and dad were there as well. So we all got to, you get to have like 5 minutes out the back, and have a chat with
Governor General.
Governor General, yeah. So it was cool to be able to do that. And I remember my dad's can talk even more than I could, and I remember saying to Dad, our time's up there, we've got to go, and he just wanted to keep talking, and I could see him looking at the door like, get this guy out of here, so it was quite funny.
Something like that, like I don't think you can just imagine, how powerful it is for your parents.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're super proud. They again still, they love basketball, but they loved following my journey, and now my son Jaden's doing it. They love watching his games and following his journey as well, and they just ultimately really proud, not only of me, but my 2 older brothers as well, and their journeys in different walks of life. But again, just proud parents.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. God, I've been chaotic in this podcast. I'm sorry. It feels like it's gone in terms of a timeline all over the place. I just remembered the Perth years. So you're at the Breakers. You're a proud member of the BNZ Breakers.
Yes.
And then Yeah, what happens? How do you end up in Perth? Do the Breakers not want you anymore?
Breakers didn't want me, so after 2 years of failure, they basically had a bit of a clean out, to be fair, and they, they basically were like, they basically needed to make some changes, so they brought Andre Lamanis in as coach, and he wanted to go in a different direction, and I wasn't part of the direction he wanted to go in, and so they said, we don't have a spot for you going forward, and don't have a new contract to renew. So I took the opportunity to go to Perth, who was a pretty successful franchise at the time, and went over to Perth. And as you mentioned earlier, like I left on my own initially. So Nikki and the kids were back in school, so they were here. They ended up coming during the school holidays and stuff. So again, living apart was pretty tough. But again, being able to go to a new team, sometimes being there on your own, just being able to get into the system and the flow of things was really valuable. Had a good season in Perth. We made it to the semi-finals and lost in the semi-finals to the eventual winners, which was Melbourne. And then got recruited to be in Brisbane. So I love my time in Perth, love Perth as a place, but we hardly had any visitors while we were there.
I've got siblings over there. It's so far away.
So far, and it's expensive, so...
It's like the same distance almost as a flight to Hawaii.
Yeah, it really is.
But you're still somewhere in Australia.
That's right. And so when I got the opportunity and got recruited by Brisbane, I was kind of like, should I be closer, be closer to New Zealand? It's only a 3.5 hour flight. And I knew we'd have more visitors and more family especially. And so we made the tough call to leave Perth and go to Brisbane. And I spent 2 seasons in Brisbane and was lucky enough to win a championship in Brisbane. So, and then funny story that I was talking about yesterday actually with the Blackwells was the Breakers wanted to recruit CJ Bruton from Brisbane. And so I remember them ringing CJ and talking to him about coming to New Zealand. And CJ said, I'm not going to come to New Zealand unless you sign Dylan. Like, he's the best teammate I've ever had. I need him on the team next to me. And so he got off the phone, he rang me and he said, I've just told the Breakers they need to recruit you, because he knew I wanted to be back home playing. I wanted to play for the Breakers. That's who I loved. And he's like, they're going to call you. And I got off thinking, no player would ever do that. He's like, I've told them I'm not coming unless you sign first. And so sure enough, like 30 minutes later, Richard Clark calls me and he's like, we want to recruit you back home. And I was like, my God, this guy's for real. So I can remember saying to Nikki, look, the Breakers want me back. I'm going to hold out because I want to. And she's like, no way, we're going home. We're just, whatever they offer you, just take it. Like, $50 a season. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just take it. We're going home. Long story short, I signed with the Breakers and CJ Bruton signed with the Breakers and came home. And so, so I'd spent three years in Australia playing. Kind of going back and forth. I was still playing for Auckland and stuff in between, so I was coming home for months at a time and then going back. But being back home with the Breakers was amazing to be able to come back to a club that meant so much to me. And then obviously from there we had those successful seasons and my seasons where we won 3 championships in a row. And my last game was our 3rd championship, so I got to go out on a high, and funnily enough, we won that in Perth, so in front of a lot of friends and stuff that I still had over there.
Yeah, Perth Wildcats, eh?
That's it.
What was it like playing for the Wildcats against the Breakers?
It was weird. It was funny because I had fans in New Zealand here and family members that would bring signs to the games when we'd play the Breakers, and they'd be cheering for me for the Wildcats, and you can imagine how that goes down in a crowd. It was always had extra motivation playing the Breakers, always, because I wanted to prove to them that they'd made the wrong decision to get rid of me. So I would take the team talks before we'd play the Breakers, and I'd say, fellas, I need you guys to play your best today because I want to prove to the Breakers they should have had me on their team. And I'd give this motivational speech about why I needed to beat the Breakers, and so I would always go extra hard against the Breakers, and generally it would backfire because anytime you're in a game where you try and put extra stuff into it, it never pay. You just got to play your game. But I'd try and do stuff I wasn't capable of, and I'd end up like getting in foul trouble or something because I'd try too hard, and I ended up over time I'd just relax and play the game. But I had so much motivation because I wanted them to see I was good to recruit me back to the Breakers. And so when I got the opportunity to come back, it was a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, it must have felt like coming home.
100% was coming home. I mean, when you play for the Breakers, you play with a little bit more pride than you do just playing for a normal club team. It's just natural. It feels because you're you're like a New Zealand team playing in a professional competition. So you have that extra motivation. You're playing for a country.
And when you finished with the Breakers, BNZ Breakers, they retired your number 24. What does that mean for someone that's not huge into basketball?
Yeah.
It's the highest honour that you can bestow on a player, right?
It is, and something I'm incredibly proud of. Again, I spent a lot of hours honing my skills for the Breakers to be successful at the Breakers. So to be honoured by the club and retiring my jersey was the ultimate for me, and something, again, I think about a few things in my career that I'm super proud of. That is definitely one of them, because just because you're good at basketball, that doesn't retire your jersey. You have to be able to have made an impact through the club, through whether it be both on the court but also off the court as well. And so the criteria basically is, can you tell the Breakers' history without mentioning this player? And that's generally how you get and bestowed upon. So, again, very lucky to be up there with Paul Hinade and CJ Bruton and the Blackwell family up there as well. So, and there'll be others to come, guys that will be, guys like your Mika Vakonas and your Tom Abercrombies will 100% have their jerseys retired by this club. And yeah, the BNZ Breakers mean the world to me, and that's why I'm so excited to be back.
Yeah, was that emotional when they retired the number?
It was emotional, yeah, and it was emotional because it's almost like that's the closing of your career too. Like that's kind of like curtains have closed. There's no coming back from that. So for me, that was the end of my kind of like professional playing. I ended up playing a few more years in New Zealand, in the New Zealand NBL, which is semi-professional. But that was the end of me being basically a professional basketball player.
Yeah, what was that transition like, going from being a player to not being a player anymore, when it's basically all you'd known your adult life?
It's tough, man. Like, it really is tough. And I remember, and I was fortunate enough, I went into a role straight away with the Breakers. They offered me a role in the office. So I was able to go back to a club again, in a club that I was familiar with and knew the people in the office. But you feel like a bit of an imposter in there. You feel like you shouldn't be up there with these people because you don't have basically the skills that they've got. You have to learn everything on the fly. And I'm not formally educated. I've got a certificate in travel studies. I don't have a bachelor's degree or anything like that. So everything I've earned is just through hard work and learning. And I believe I'm a good learner. And when I'm passionate about something, I'll learn faster. So for me, it was really tough going into that office environment, but I also loved it because it was for a club that I cared about.
Yeah, that was going to be the next thing I was going to ask. Like, did you enjoy it, or did you feel, I don't know, like a sense of FOMO about what's going on the court, or just a sense of boredom because it's a very, very different job. Still in the basketball universe, but it's very different to being a professional player.
Very different. And the worst thing is, in our office, we've got a window that looks out onto the court. So it's like brutal. You're watching your mates run up and down and laughing and having fun, and you're there on your computer typing away. Like, it's actually pretty brutal. The thing I noticed most, though, was wearing dress shoes. Like, I've worn sneakers my whole life, and all of a sudden you're going into a job where you're wearing dress shoes every day. Man, your feet are sore. Those bloody dress shoes, man. I tell you. So now I try and wear sneakers as much as I can.
Yeah, so the recent part of your admin career, 2016 to 2019, Breakers general manager. Yeah, how was the imposter syndrome when you got that job?
Yeah, it was, again, same thing, because, again, I'd kind of worked my way through the commercial side of the business and then into that GM role. And, I was very grateful that at the time I got given the GM role, it was Richard Clark had just left, and the timing probably wasn't right for me to go in that role, but the Blackwell family took a chance on me to go into that role and put some support around me to help support me into that role. So, but I learned so much going into that role. I learned from a lot of failures. I learned, so much, and I think now I'm kind of almost going full circle back into a similar role. And what I've learned now from my time at Basketball New Zealand, I'm far more skilled than what I was in those early days. So I'm glad to know I'm going back a far more polished executive going into that role.
Yeah. What are your top priorities in this new role?
I think the big thing is getting this club to be a club that's desirable. Like, for me, when you're recruiting players, it needs to be a place where people want to be. So we need to ensure we're putting everything in place that the players feel like they've got everything they need to be successful. There's nothing worse than when you're on a team and you don't have the tools you need to be successful, and you look across the road and they've got it across the road, but you don't have it. So we want to be able to build a culture within the group that makes people want to be there, but also then to have the resources available to them to be the best that they can be.
Yeah. This isn't a Breakers specific question, but yeah, why is New Zealand basketball so underfunded?
I just think sport in general in this country is underfunded.
Okay, but basketball's so popular, right?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, it will be the number one sport very shortly as far as participation numbers go. Wow. Like the numbers are going through the roof. Probably what's holding it back is there's not enough venues. That's probably the single biggest thing. And I think the funding is predicated towards Olympic sports and Olympic success. And I think at the moment, with the way the criteria is set, it's probably not set for sports like football and basketball and hockey and those sports. So
yeah, thanks for that answer. What's one common thread you've seen with successful teams, whether it's on the court or in the boardroom?
Yeah, I think it has to be something more than just the sport you're playing. I think you have to have a sense of belonging outside of just being good at the sport, and I think that's a crucial part. But also think playing a role, like everyone has a role to play within sport, and I think the teams I've been involved in that have been successful have had really good defined roles for each person on the team, and that's right through to the off court as well. If you do your role really well, you're a crucial piece of the puzzle to be able to be successful. And I think, again, right down to your role players, to your superstars, everyone has to do their job. And if everyone does their job well, it's going to put you in the best chance to succeed.
And what about a leader? What makes a great leader?
I think, again, leadership is, there's multiple ways of leading. So there's guys who lead by example, there's guys who lead by their voice, but there's guys who lead by listening and learning and then getting better themselves. So I think leadership is a combination of all those things. So you might have different styles. Like, for example, Mika Vakona was a really good leader, and he was a lead by example. Left his, he would die out on the court for you, and you knew that, and so you went to battle with him knowing that he would do that. But he wasn't a super vocal guy in the locker room until you needed him to be, and then he would blow up. And then when he blew up, everyone stopped and listened and was like, wow, Mika's speaking, so listen. And then I was probably more of a vocal leader. I was a constant voice in the locker room and tried to constantly keep people on the right page of where we were going. But I spoke a lot, so guys were probably tuning out half the time. Who knows? But yeah, you kind of need that constant voice as well to make sure you are going in the right direction and be an extension of the coaching staff as well, to be able to make sure the message you're getting through to your team is what the coaches would be saying, but maybe you've got the ear of the players more than the coaches do. Yeah,
but you being outspoken, isn't that part of the reason they got rid of you to Perth?
Yeah,
it is.
It is. 100%, yeah.
That's so offensive.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty outspoken that we were failing and why we were failing, and I made sure I made it clear why we were doing it. And it's funny because all the things I was saying ended up come to fruition eventually over the years. And so by the time I came back, it was all sorted. So it was kind of, had I not said that, would it still have happened? Possibly, but sometimes you've got to put yourself out of the equation and just speak your mind, and for the greater good of the club.
Yeah, so we're back on this thing again. But how was your mental health at that time? Like you must have felt really. I suppose I'm projecting, but I'm imagining I'm you. Like you're no longer wanted by this team that you love. You're 7 hours away from your family in Perth, and a team that has been your fiercest enemy. Basically just for standing up for like what you believe in and what's right. Did you fall into some sort of a depression or not really?
Nah, I mean, I consider myself a pretty resilient guy. I use goals and I use motivations to keep me going. And for me, I'd worked so hard to be a professional athlete. I wasn't about after 2 years to give it all away. I wanted to actually really make it. And so when I went to Perth, I really focused on my game and tried to get better. And again, a lot of it was motivation to show the Breakers they'd made a mistake. But for me personally, it was becoming the best player I could possibly be. And then by the season finishing in Perth, I was kind of over the Breakers stuff. Like I was kind of like, I'd found a home in Perth, and Perth wanted to re-sign me as well. So I was quite honoured that the club who I'd gone to had wanted to re-sign me and were offering me a bigger contract and all the rest of it. And then Brisbane had offered me a bigger contract as well. And so it was kind of like, oh man, I'm actually valued by these other people. So I felt the love from both Perth and Brisbane that, they've given me opportunities to be able to go and play for both these clubs. And so it was hard leaving Perth because the people there were great. I enjoyed my time there. My teammates were great. you never like to play one season and leave because it was a good situation, but it just wasn't close enough to home. And I explained that to them, and it sounds like an easy excuse to leave, but it was actually a legitimate excuse.
Yeah, that must be weird. So suddenly you've got like enemies in the New Zealand crowd and enemies in the Perth crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good on you. Gee, I suppose that's what like separates you from a lot of other people, that champion sort of mindset. Like, you know, even though it's a negative situation and it could crush a lot of people, you just use it as fuel.
I'm a glass half full kind of guy. I believe
Yeah.
I see the positive in everything. Even when something bad's happening, and it frustrates Nikki, my wife, like when I always try and find a positive in something, 'cause she's like, sometimes it's okay that it's just a negative, and I go, yeah, but then you got to find the positive to move out of the negative space. So don't get me wrong, I get down on things, and things do upset me and things do cut me deep, but I move on pretty quickly. I forgive and I move on pretty quickly. My glass half full mentality is that I try and find a positive in everything. And there was a positive going to Perth. I grew as a player and as a person, and I developed. And when I came back, I was better than what I was when I left. So it all worked out in the end of the day. It was just a long route to go back to where I wanted to be.
Yeah, how are you with like vulnerability, like having like deep and serious, potentially uncomfortable conversations with people?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty good. I think I've got a lot of empathy, and again, that's why when I was portrayed as this kind of like thug or whatever, I didn't enjoy that because that's not who I am. I've got a lot of empathy for people. I care about people, and I want to help people. I'm the sort of person I try and be as selfless as I can, and I want to make sure people around me feel the love and feel that I'm supporting them. But that's both from whether I'm in business or whether in friendships. I want my friends to feel like I care about their lives and their families. And the same with my own family. I want them to feel like I care about them and that they're the most important thing to me. So that stuff's really important. But also when people are doing it tough, I like to be there to support them because I've got an empathetic side that, when someone needs something, I want to be there to support them.
Yeah, well, we've been chatting for almost a couple of hours, and that's definitely the vibe I get about, the Dylan Boucher that's been sitting in front of me today.
Awesome.
Yeah. What are your best and worst habits?
My worst habit is biting my fingernails. I still do it.
Hold them up, show them.
Yeah.
Oh, they're not. Oh, some of them are quite bad.
Yeah.
Did they bleed in the corners?
No, I'm not that guy. No, I have limits. But the only time I stopped biting my nails was before my wedding because we needed to do the wedding hand photo.
So you can stop.
I can stop. But it's not. It is a nervous thing, I think. I think it's my, it's a nervous twitch. But again, I'm a picker. I pick at my nails and things like that, and then I make them uneven, and then so I bite them to try and file them. So it's a really disgusting habit.
I do it as well. I tell people I'm like a recreational biter. Like I never bite.
Yeah, yours are pretty good.
But for me, it's like a concentration or a thinking thing.
Yeah, it is. I often, and it's funny now. I'm on Teams or Zoom meetings all the time, so now I can see myself on camera, and I'm like, get your hand out of your mouth, and it reminds me. But when I'm not on camera or anything, I'm just, again, I'm thinking and I'm.
But it's embarrassing. Like we're middle-aged men.
That's right.
Like,
exactly.
This is something that kids do.
Yeah. And what are my good habits? I think for me, again, I go back to I'm always trying to be a good person, and I try really hard, and I fail miserably most of the time. But I try and be a good person, and I try and keep everyone happy. And sometimes that comes back to burn you. But I like to keep people happy. I'm a people pleaser, and I like people. I enjoy people, and I enjoy company. So I liked having friendships and stuff. But sometimes it does come back and burn you. Sometimes.
Being such a good dude, has that made it hard in the management positions where often you have to have?
Absolutely. Yes. And it's funny. I'm getting removed enough, whereas I'm still got some guys who are my teammates or my mates, and that's really hard. Having hard conversations with people is really, really hard when you have a relationship with them. I'm getting to the point now where they're not my people I've played with, and so it makes it a little bit easier, but still, they're still human beings, and sometimes you're crushing dreams when you're having hard conversations with people.
Yeah. How is that suddenly becoming the boss of some of your old mates?
Yeah.
Like, did you have to, avoid social functions? And
I think you've got to know when to leave social functions. I think that's I never try and avoid them, but like, for example, if I'm, going somewhere, I'll have a beer or have a couple of beers or whatever, and then I'll know my time. And because they don't want the boss there all the time, it's and so I feel that. So it's like be social, but then know when to leave, I think is crucial. And I've tried to get that balance right, but usually when you leave, the credit card goes with you. So it's so sometimes they do want you to stay.
Yeah. When was the last time you cried?
I'm actually a serial crier.
Are you like happy tears?
When I watch TV programs, I'm a shocker. Like TV programs get me, man. And I often have tears running down my face in movies or TV programs. And I don't know what it is. It just strikes a chord. And there was a program that used to be on, and I can't even remember the name of it now, but David Lomas used to...
I've got him coming in for a podcast next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's there's a new season. It's called David Lomas Investigates now.
Yeah. So he would go and find your families or whatever, and man, it would just be tearjerkers for me. I'd be struggling, and I think maybe in a previous life I was left behind as a child or something happened, but I find those really emotional, and I think about how close I am with my own family and with my own kids and wife, and also with my brothers and my mum and dad, and I think about those people that don't have that, and I feel for them. I feel sorry for them. And then when they try and connect with their family, or they finally connect with someone that they haven't been with for 20 years, it breaks my heart. And so it makes me quite emotional. So I cry quite often, but I don't cry. It's normally not to do with me. It's my emotional side, I think, coming out. So tears have got to come out eventually, and that's when they come out.
It's a great emotion, though, eh?
It is.
It's something you should lean into. Were you always like that, or has that come with age?
I think I've always been like
Have
that.
you?
I've never been afraid to cry. But again, it's usually been crying either happy tears or like my kids. Like when I start talking about my kids, I have a lump comes up in my throat because they're my world, and so when I'm talking about them, I get emotional about them. And so when I see them, like succeed in something, it doesn't have to be sport. It might just be they do well in a test. I'm so proud of them that especially when I see that they've worked hard and they see the outcome of working hard. It's actually really pleasing.
Yeah. I just remember there's something else I read about you that you and I have in common. We both love baths and candles.
Oh, yeah.
Scented candles.
Love a bath. I had a bath last night, yeah.
This has always been a thing. So, yeah. It's a very feminine sort of trait, I get told.
It is,
but I love it. I'm a sucker for it.
Absolutely. I love a bath and love, burning a candle. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it.
You got to lean into these feminine traits. What are your biggest flaws?
My biggest flaws, I often don't get the balance right with work and home life. I sometimes, because again, I'm a people pleaser, so I try and, my work will overtake me sometimes, and sometimes, my family feel it, and I put hours and hours into my jobs that I do, and sometimes that can take its toll on the family, and so there's times where I feel like I haven't been home because I've been away, or and I know it's no different to a lot of people, but I spend a lot of my time on the road playing basketball, and my kids have not seen me a lot, and so I try and be there as much as I can for them, but sometimes I don't feel like it's enough.
What about future goals? Like where you turn 50, just in between Christmas and New Year this year, where do you see yourself at, say, 55, 60?
I'd love to say retired, no. But
do you want to retire?
I don't know, probably not. I say that. But
how old were your parents when they retired?
Oh, they were pretty young.
Were they?
They've had some pretty good success. They were able to do it from a young age. But I think for me, I think I would like to be in a position where I really enjoy what I do, and I think that's the key to life. If you can just do the things you really enjoy and not have to do the things that you have to do, that'd be a really good position to be in. So I don't know what that looks like yet.
Yeah, I'm the same. Like to me, that's what retirement would be. Maybe it involves some sort of work or you work in some capacity, but as long as it doesn't feel like work,
that's right,
or something you have to be doing.
Yeah.
Are there 3 words that maybe Nikki or your kids would use to describe you?
3 words. I think they would say, I would like them to say funny. They think I'm funny. My twins certainly still laugh at my jokes. So I feel like I'm a lighthearted, like I've got a lighthearted humour about me. I don't take things too seriously. I think they would say I work hard. I think they can see that and they feel that. And then I think I would hope that they would say that I'm a family first person. That's what if I could have one thing to sum me up when I finally pass away, it would be that I'm a family guy, that I cared most about family, and I would be happy with that.
That's so good. That's so cool. What about legacy?
Again, on a legacy piece, I often think a lot about legacy. For me, I would like to, because I've been involved with basketball my whole life, I would like to see basketball be in a better place than when I first got involved in it, and it already is. But can I help build that to be even better than what it is now? Is always what I think about. And from a legacy piece from a family, I just hope that you're able to show your kids what good looks like, and then hopefully they can emulate that over time and learn from your mistakes to make sure they don't make the same mistakes. And I certainly have not been perfect at all in my life, far from it, but I figure I've had some good moments as well, that they can maybe focus on the good moments and learn from the bad moments.
How are you not in the Hall of Fame?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah. Like when you were the boss of Basketball New Zealand, couldn't you be like, oh, just one more thing for the agenda?
No, I mean, again, I feel like I'm a pretty humble guy too, and I don't like. I feel uncomfortable with accolades. I really do. I don't. It doesn't sit well with me, which is probably why I don't have things hanging up in the house and stuff. But I always believe things that when you deserve it, something that they'll come, so I'm not in a hurry for anything like that. Again, I've got a lot to give in the game before I worry about that stuff. Yeah.
Are you proud of yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm as humble as I am, I'm also proud, and I've worked my ass off to be where I am. And, and I hope people can see that, and see that if you work hard, you can achieve things. And for me, I'm not a super talented guy, and I'm not super smart, and I don't have any of these natural attributes that some people have. But the one attribute that people talk a lot about is work ethic, and I believe I have that, and I believe that's what's got me to where I am today, and that's what will continue to get me to where I want to get to, is just being able to work and just be a good person. I think people want good people around them.
I think that's a great place to end it.
Awesome.
This has been great. I can't believe we haven't met until today, but I've thoroughly enjoyed getting to know you better. It's been really, really insightful, and a great episode. Dylan Boucher, number 24.
Yeah.
A great New Zealander. Thank you, mate.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.